Now, the Russia-Ukraine war, as you know, has been raging on for a year now. In fact, it is day 43, and today saw a major escalation. Russia has today accused Ukraine of launching an assassination attempt at Russian President Vladimir Putin. This, they say, happened overnight. Russia is accusing Ukraine of attempting a drone strike in a bid to assassinate President Putin, adding that it has successfully shot down both the drones using their radar warfare systems, essentially saying that beyond that blast, not much damage was done. Moscow says that Putin was not in Kremlin at the time, but the attempt to assassinate him was foiled. And then came the call to, and I quote, destroy Kyiv. That is Ukraine's capital city. The Russian parliament has now called for an attack on Ukrainian President Zelensky's presidential palace. He right now is in Finland, and news just coming in seems to suggest that he will be staying in Finland for at least a couple of days more. This was supposed to be a one-day trip that has now been extended. Is it related? Is the extension of the visit related to what has happened in Russia? Possibly yes. Ukraine, for the moment, is denying any involvement in this drone attack, saying they were not aware about this drone attack. In fact, Ukraine now says that the attack was staged by Russia. Ukrainian presidential advisors went on record to say that it is very unlikely that Russia might use these claims as a pretext to justify massive strikes on Ukrainian cities in the future. Kremlin, on its part, is saying they will consider this an action that was a planned terrorist attack, and Kremlin is saying they will retaliate. All this, let's put the pictures of the attack on our screens for our viewers. All of this is happening while Ukrainian President Zelensky is in Finland, where he's met his with his Nordic counterparts. This in a bid to gather more aid as part of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. You need resources to fight a war. Zelensky has also met with the Finnish president and said that Ukraine will soon launch a full-blown offensive against Russia. To add to this, just a while ago, the European Union has pledged to increase support to Ukraine with the delivery of ammunition. So that is all that has happened today. The highlight is Russia accusing Ukraine of plotting to assassinate the Russian president. Nikita is director of the Eurasian Analytical Club, joining us on the broadcast. And Ruslan Botnik is a Ukrainian political analyst, joining us as well. Thank you both, gentlemen, for being with us. Nikita, there you have it. Ukraine has outrightly denied that they have anything to do with this drone attack on the Kremlin. They are saying we have nothing to do with it. But this is something that Russia has staged to justify a full-scale onslaught on Ukraine.
Russia need nothing to justify self-defense from American aggression committed by Ukrainian mercenaries. On daily basis, these terrorist groups killing civilians people in Donetsk and other Russian cities. Today, 3 people, citizens, one of them, our little boy, were injured during attack of the so-called Ukrainian army against Donetsk city. Of course, this attack you're showing now is also committed not by green man from the space, but by the Ukrainian terrorists. Terrorist groups ruled by United States and other NATO countries, used as a tool of aggression against Russia and against Ukrainian people. United States made Ukraine as a colony of those countries. They control those land, those factories. They arrest and kill Ukrainian people.
Okay.
Russian troops and Ukrainian citizens are trying to liberate the country. Of course, United States and their mercenaries, Ukrainian traitors, don't like it. They tried to kill Putin, but it is nothing new.
Okay.
They are killing people because they are terrorists. As I said, today they killed and injured people in Donetsk. Not president, not soldiers, just usual civilians. You should remember, when you talk about so-called Ukrainian army, you're talking about butchers and terrorists, which are to be destroyed by Russian army.
No, the same can be said about the Russian army as well by the Ukrainians. Nikita, the same can be said about the Russian army by the Ukrainians. Let's get in. Of course it can be. What are the Russians doing in Ukraine then? But
please, let me finish. You
but
asked
Ruslan,
a question,
okay.
As I said, Russian army is defending our land and Ukrainian people because of aggression committed by United States. They moved away legal government of Ukraine in 2014 and installed a control under this territory. Of course, Ukrainian people don't like it. They were fighting for 9 years against American occupation. And when United States also tried to use these terrorist groups as a tool of aggression against Russia, we help Ukrainian people to fight against United States. As I said, we are fighting not against Ukraine.
The point is, Nikita,
we are fighting against terrorism. We are fighting for our freedom and
okay, so that's the Russian point of view.
No, it's a
that's the Russian point of view. But my simple that's the Russian point of view. That's the Russian point of view. Let's get the Ukrainian point of view as well, right? I'm getting in Ruslan into this conversation as well. Nikita, there's always another point of view. And it's always good to listen to the other point of view. Let's get in Ruslan. Russia is convinced that this was Ukraine's doing. That this is enemy action beyond enemy action if you try and assassinate our president. Now, Ukraine can go on and say that we have nothing to do with it. Ukraine will somehow have to prove that they have nothing to do with it because the Russians firmly believe that they have everything to do with it.
Russia was the source of this information. This attack on Kremlin happened in the night. We see the video. But the information came to the public after the 10 hours or even more. So Russia, of course, can use this situation to the new wave of escalation of war between Russia and Ukraine. And I think we became closer to the use of nuclear weapon in Ukraine or something else, something like this. Because this attack or pseudo-attack or artificial attack gives Russia a possibility to high up the level of escalation. And it happening before or in the beginning of Ukrainian counteroffensive operation. And it happening, as you were said, correct, when the Ukrainian president is abroad with the international trip. Very extremely dangerous situation.
Are you, Ruslan, is Ukraine fearing an escalation? I ask you this question, just a minute. Ruslan, I want to ask you whether Ukraine is fearing an escalation. The war is now 433 days old. Fact is that your President Zelensky right now is in Finland. His stay there has been extended. Is there a fear in Ukraine of an immediate retaliation?
If we are talking about the average people, people in the streets, they are very glad because of this attack to the Kremlin, because it's a symbolic victory of Ukraine, a very symbolic sign of Russian weakness in this war. But if we are talking about the political segment, politicians and political experts, of course, we are waiting for some kind of revenge from Russian side. And we are waiting and seeing very carefully what Russia is going to do further in this situation. Maybe Russia will try to make assassination attacks to Ukrainian leadership, to Ukrainian president, or another heads of Ukrainian state. Maybe Russia will intensify the air attacks in Ukraine. I'm living in Kyiv just now. And every day we have few air alarms, and nowadays with these alarms is more dangerous than before. And we are waiting, and we are seeing very attentively the situation.
Okay, Nikita, can I just come to you before wrapping this chat? As I said, there is always a perspective from the Russian side and a perspective from the Ukrainian side. Nikita, my point is, that it is Russia that has released the footage that we are seeing on our screens. It is, Russia that made the information available to the world. Obviously, they are the ones who would have to make that information available to the world, but they did it only 7 or 8 hours after the incident takes place. Point is, the onus on proving that this attack was indeed from Ukraine is on you, and there is nothing to suggest right now, at least in terms of proof, that it was Ukraine that is behind this attack. Now, logically, you can tell me who else will do it, but the Ukrainians have denied it.
First of all, we have plenty of videos of this attack committed by Ukrainian terrorists against Kremlin. Most of these videos made out of the Kremlin by usual civilians journalists. But we have one more important topic to talk. Your guest, Mr. Botnik, is an officer of the Interior Ministry of so-called Ukrainian government. He finished the police academy in 2009. He now should join Ukrainian troops. It is Zelensky order. But this man, your guest, Mr. Botnik, young and strong, sitting at the Kyiv, telling us fairy tales, trying to justify Ukrainian terrorist attacks. Why? It is because he don't believe himself lies he's telling about. He understands he has nothing to go and to fight because Ukrainian is occupied by United States. Real Ukrainian position is position of Russian and Ukrainian troops.
Nikita, here's what I'll say. I know the countries are at war with each other.
No.
Nikita, I know that the countries are at war with each other, but A, we don't need to get personal. B, why he has not chosen to, join the Ukrainian army right now is completely his own business. It's none of our business.
No, please. Don't interrupt me. You said you want to hear Ukrainian position. You ask this boy who deserted from the so-called Ukrainian army. Okay, but maybe you should ask more brave, more patriotic Ukrainian people who fighting with Russian army against troops of Zelensky regime and United States forces. If you want to hear
Nikita.
Ukrainian position,
okay, Nikita, I think you've made your point. You've made your point. You've made your point, and I'll say this. You're a good spokesperson for your country. This is what I'll say. You're committed and you repeat the point so many times that people are forced to sit up and take notice, if not believe. But I think our Ukrainian guest has made his position very clear as well, that this was an attack that was staged by the Russians to probably justify bigger attacks on Kiev, possibly the rest of Ukraine as well. Yes, okay, and I understand what the Russians are saying. The Russians are saying there is no reason for us to stage anything at all. Yeah, I get it, Nikita. You've already told us what you think. You've already told us what the Russians are thinking, and you're saying we don't need any attack to justify what we will do to Kyiv next. We leave it there. We leave it there. This is an escalation. This is a major escalation. It's day 433 of the war. We leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much to both our guests for joining us. What is the kind of escalation that we'll see in the coming days, we don't know. But Kremlin is very clear that escalation will come. They're saying, be ready for retaliation. We'll see how this plays out. For the moment, I'm slipping into a quick break on the show. Afrida, my colleague, is up next with all the top news of the day at the top of 9. Do stay with us.